Some nights feel wrong before anything happens. That night, the house felt like it was waiting for me. I've been babysitting since I was 14. Not the late night shifts, not the crying babies, not the creepy houses prepared. Me for what happened when I was 16, okay? It was the winter of 2013. Cold, foggy, visible kind of nights where silence feels heavier than it should. The Callaways lived in a quiet cul-de-sac on the far end of town, in one of those homes that look new on the outside, but old on the inside. Dim lights, creaking floors, thin walls. They had one child, 8-month-old girl named Ellie and a German shepherd named Bolt. When I arrived, Bolt stared at me for a long moment without blinking, tail down, ears straight. Almost like he recognized something about me that I didn't. "No yet," Mrs. Calloway said. "Don't worry about him. He's overly protective." But looking back, I don't think he was protecting Ellie from strangers. I think he was warning them. The couple gave the usual rundown feeding schedule, favorite toys, emergency numbers. Then Mr. Calloway added something that felt out of place. He placed the baby monitor receiver in my hand and said quietly, "You hear anything strange coming from the monitor? Anything at all? Check on Ellie immediately." I laughed a bit, like, "Strange how you didn't laugh back. You'll know." And then they left. I had the baby monitor on the coffee table, Bolt lying by my feet like a furry guardian. The house was too quiet. Even the humming refrigerator sounded too loud. Around 9:30 p.m., heard Ellie start fussing upstairs, small whimpers, the kind babies make before a full meltdown. I checked the monitor screen. She was rolling a little in her crib, but nothing unusual. But then I heard something else. A whisper. Not exactly words, but shaped like words. A breathy, rhythmic murmur. At first, I thought it was white noise or interference. I turned up the volume slightly. Bolt's head shot up instantly. A low growl vibrated in his throat. The whispering continued, soft, intentional, almost soothing, if it wasn't so wrong. I leaned closer. The whisper changed to pitch, like someone leaning in closer to the microphone. Then it formed a word, a single word, "She." I froze. Ellie wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't making a sound. Bolt walked to the bottom of the stairs and stared up into the darkness, rigid as stone. I muttered to myself, probably interference. Someone else's baby monitor. Lie. Didn't believe that. The whispering continued, now layered like two voices, overlapping slightly, out of sync. Bolt let out a sharp bark. I climbed the stairs, its heart pounding with every creak of the old wooden steps. Halfway up, the monitor went silent, the kind of silence that feels forced. I reached Ellie's door. It was slightly open. I hadn't left it that way. I pushed the door gently. The nightlight glowed dim yellow, barely illuminating the room. Everything seemed normal at first. Crib, rocking chair, stuffed animals. But the atmosphere felt wrong. Like the air pressure had changed. Ellie lay in her crib, staring straight up, wide-eyed, not blinking, completely silent. I whispered, "Hey, sweetheart, what's wrong?" I picked her up. She fell stiff against me for a second, then relaxed slowly. I checked the closet, and behind the curtains, nothing. Bolt paced outside the door. Whining softly, I carried Ellie downstairs, refusing to stay in that room any longer. When we reached the bottom of the stairs, the monitor still on in my hand crackled. Sharply, then a voice whispered, "Put her back." My throat tightened. I stared at the monitor like it betrayed me. The whisper came again, clearer, angrier. "Put her back." I shook my head, more to myself than anything. Nope, no, I'm done. I put the monitor face down on the couch and held Ellie close. Her tiny hand gripped my shirt like she understood exactly how terrified I was. Bolt barked once, loud and sharp, and stood between us and the hallway, hackles raised. I had no idea what he was sensing, but whatever it was, he wasn't letting it near us. At 10:04 p.m., the knocking started. Not from the door, not from the windows, not from the walls. It came from the baby monitor speaker. 3 slow knocks, as if someone gently tapped the microphone. Bolt barked so fiercely that Ellie started crying. I bounced her gently, trying to calm her, but honestly, I was trying harder to calm myself. I called the CALLOWAYS. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. The monitor hissed loudly, static, turning into garbled breathing. Then something else mixed in. Something faint, footsteps, slow, measured. Inside the nursery, I sprinted to the front door, ready to leave the house entirely. But then the footsteps stopped. The monitor speaker cut to dead silence, and then a whisper, right beside the microphone, said, "Why did you take her?" My hands went numb. That voice wasn't angry. It sounded confused, sad, childlike. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what it wanted. All I knew was that I wasn't going back upstairs at 10:11 p.m. The nursery door upstairs creaked, slowly, long and drawn out. Bolt growled again, this time backing up toward me, forcing me further away from the stairs. The monitor picked up breathing again, but not one person's breathing. 2, 1, slow. 1 fast, like 2 things stood near the crib. Then the fast one whispered, "She's gone. She's gone. She's gone." Followed by the slow one whispering, "Bring her back." Ellie whimpered against my shoulder. I whispered, "It's okay, baby. It's okay," though I didn't believe it. I couldn't stay in that house another second. I grabbed my coat, Ellie's diaper bag, the car keys on the counter, and headed for the front door. Before I opened it, the monitor made a sharp clicking, sound like a microphone being grabbed, and then, as clear as someone standing directly behind me, "Don't leave." Bolt shoved his body between me and the living room, barking louder than ever. I didn't turn around. I ran. The cold air hit me like ice. I strapped Ellie into her car seat as fast as I could. "Okay." Bolt jumped into the back seat without hesitation. I locked the car and sat there panting, trying to understand what had just happened. We drove 2 streets away before I pulled over under a streetlight. I called the Callaways again. This time, he answered. Mrs. Callaway's voice was frantic. "Everything okay? You called 3 times?" I took a shaky breath. "Something's wrong in your house." The monitor something is whispering. Voices, footsteps. I silence on the other end. Then Mr. Callaway said quietly, "Started after we moved the crib." Stomach dropped. He continued, lower, as if afraid someone would overhear him. "We thought it was just interference. But every babysitter quits. They say the same thing." I asked, "Then why didn't you tell me?" Mrs. Callaway started crying softly. "We didn't want to scare you, okay? And Ellie hasn't slept in that room for weeks. We move her to our room. Every night." I froze. "But she was in the crib tonight." "No," Mrs. Callaway whispered. "She was asleep in our bed when we left." I stared at Ellie in the back seat. She was half asleep, sucking her thumb. I hadn't moved her. I hadn't found her anywhere except the crib, so who put her there? When the Callaways returned home, they begged me not to come inside. They carried Ellie inside quickly, Bolt following as they walked through the doorway, and the baby monitor in. My hand still turned, unspoke, one last time, soft, sad, almost pleading. "Don't take her away again." "Kate," the signal cut out, and no matter how many times I've tried to rationalize it, still hear that voice in my sleep. And some nights, I swear I still hear knocking on a baby monitor that I don't even own anymore. The worst part wasn't the boy standing at the end of the hallway. It was realizing he wasn't supposed to be there. I was 17 when I took the babysitting job that still keeps me awake some nights. It happened in 2015 during a slow winter break when money was tight, and I said yes to almost anyone who asked me to watch their kids. The Lamberts lived in a quiet, older neighborhood, long driveways, huge trees, houses spaced far enough apart that if something went wrong, shouting wouldn't help much. Their place had an odd charm, a wide porch, chipped paint, and windows that didn't quite line up straight. They had 2 children, Mia, a sweet, hyper 6-year-old girl, and Noah, their 4-year-old son. At least, that's what they told me. What? They didn't tell me what they should have told me's that Noah had been gone for over a year. Mrs. Lambert greeted me at the door, looking slightly worn out, like she hadn't had a full night of sleep in weeks. Mia's already eaten, she said. Bedtime is 9. The guest room is made if you need anything. Then she hesitated. Her eyes shifted down the hallway. If she says anything strange, just remind her it isn't real. I frowned. Strange, like what? Before she could answer, her husband called from outside. She just shook her head. You'll know. Every parent who says that terrifies me. Mia was sitting on the living room rug, drawing with crayons. When I sat next to her, she smiled brightly, but there was something nervous behind her eyes. Do you want to play a game? I asked. She nodded. Can we stay downstairs? Mommy says. It's better. Better how? She looked toward the stairs like she expected someone to be standing there. Then she whispered, 'Cause Noah likes the upstairs. I laughed softly. Your brother, is he sleeping? She shook her head firmly. Noah doesn't sleep. He watches. The way she said it flat, Cert made goosebumps rise across my arms. I asked, gently, where is he now? She pointed her crayon toward the staircase. He's waiting. First I thought maybe the Lamberts had another kid they forgot to mention or someone visiting. But the hallway was empty, still. The air up there felt heavy, different. At 8:45, I took Mia upstairs to brush her teeth. She kept glancing behind us. Shadows from the hallway didn't fall right. The lights flickered once, just slightly, like someone brushed a hand across the switch. When we reached the top step, Mia froze. I followed her gaze. At the end of the hallway, where a dim lamp cast weak light, a small figure stood with its back to us, a boy, maybe 4, barefoot, still, just standing. My immediate thought, thank God, was that the Lamberts did have another child, and they simply forgot to tell me. But no child stands that still. No child stands perfectly straight, not even swaying, not even breathing visibly. Mia, I whispered, is that Noah? Her small hand gripped mine tightly. That's where he died. A chill went through my entire body so fast, I felt nauseous. I blinked once. The figure was gone. Just gone. Not walked away, not ducked into a room. Gone. And yet the hallway felt full. Like someone unseen still stood there. I didn't want to scare her, so I carried her into her bedroom and closed the door softly. Is Noah real? I asked carefully. She nodded, but not like before. Before what? She sat in bed, hugging her stuffed bunny so tightly her knuckles went white. He talks to me when Mommy and Daddy don't listen. She whispered. He stands by my door at night and asks if he can come in. My mouth went dry. Do you let him? No, Mommy said never to. I tucked her in, turned on her nightlight, and stayed until her breathing slowed and she fell asleep. When I stepped into the hallway, the air felt colder, much colder. I was halfway down the stairs when a small voice drifted from above. Mia, soft, thin, close. I turned slowly. The hallway was empty again, but the voice came again, clearer this time. Mia, don't leave me. I could still see her bedroom door closed. The voice wasn't coming from inside her room. It was coming from right next to it. I told myself, kids talk in their sleep. Maybe Mia was dreaming, calling her own name somehow. But deep down, I knew that wasn't her voice. It sounded like a child trying to learn how to speak again. Words stretched wrong, breath too slow. I stayed downstairs after that, curled in 2 the couch with the TV on low volume just to drown out the silence. 2 hours later, around 11 p.m., I heard light footsteps upstairs, not running, not walking, spacing, back and forth, back and forth. I checked the baby monitor the Lamberts had given me on older model, just audio. No movement from Mia's room, but the footsteps continued, uneven, dragging slightly, like one foot did. Lift properly. I forced myself up the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. The pacing stopped immediately. I stood at the top step, listening, silence, then dash, tap, 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 knuckles, on the door. Mia's door. Stop, I whispered, without thinking. The tapping stopped, but then something whispered from the same spot. You hear me? My heart pounded so hard I felt dizzy. I walked toward Mia's room, trying as quietly as possible not to wake her. When I reached the door, I leaned my ear against it. Her soft breathing was steady, safe. Everything was normal. But when I turned around, I saw him again, a small boy standing perfectly still in the corner of the hallway, bare feet, shadows swallowing his face. Clothes slightly too big, like hand-me-downs. This time, he was facing me. Hi, I whispered, because terror makes you stupid. He tilted his head slowly like. His neck wasn't used to moving. Then he took one step forward. The floor didn't creak, not even a whisper of sound. Every instinct in me screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. He took one more step. Then he whispered, I'm cold, not sad, not scared, just stating a fact. I managed to exhale. Who are you? He stepped closer, his face still hidden in shadow. Noah. And then, before I could say another word, he vanished. Like a candle blown out, no fade, no flicker. Here 1 second, it's gone the next. I ran downstairs and grabbed my phone with shaking hands. I typed Lambert family obituary into Google Doc, and there it was. Noah Lambert, died 2014 at age 4, accidental fall down the stairs. I stared at the photo. Same height, same messy hair. Same eyes though in the hallway. I never saw them. My stomach twisted. I wasn't dealing with imagination. I wasn't dealing with sleep deprivation. Something was in that house. Something shaped like Noah. But not Noah. At 12:17 a.m., Mia started crying upstairs. Not screaming, not panicking, just quiet crying, like someone had woken her gently. I rushed up the stairs. Her bedroom door was wide open. She never sleeps with it open. I stepped inside. She was sitting up in bed, tears on her cheeks. What's wrong? I whispered, brushing her hair back. He said he wants to sleep with me. She whimpered. Every muscle in my body tensed. Who? She pointed to the corner of her room. Slowly, TVRFULY. I turned my head. There was nothing there, but the air felt colder down my breath. FOGGED. Mia whispered. He says, you can't see him right now. I swallowed hard. Why not? She looked down at her blankets. Because you told him to stop. Her words hit me like ice water. My voice shook. Mia, what does he want? She hugged her bunny, to not be alone. I tucked her back into bed and stayed with her until she fell asleep again. I didn't move. I didn't blink. Listened to every creak of the house until my nerves were raw. At 1:04 a.m., something touched my shoulder. A small hand, cold, too light to be human, too real to be imagined. I froze. A voice breathed behind me. I don't want your help. I want hers. Okay. I spun around. Nothing. The door was closed. No one had entered. Okay. The air was frigid. I whispered, where are you? Silence. Then the closet. Door creaked open slowly, inch by inch. I felt something watching me from inside, but I didn't look. I couldn't. I held Mia's hand and kept my eyes forward until sunrise. I never saw him again that night. when the Lamberts came home at 6 a.m. Mrs. Lambert looked at my face once and said, "You saw him?" I nodded. She didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She just looked heartbreakingly relieved. "We hear him too," she whispered. "We've heard him since the night he died," Mr. Lambert added quietly. "He doesn't understand. He's gone." As I stepped off their porch, didn't look up at the windows. I didn't want to know if Noah was watching, but as I reached my car, a small voice drifted through the cold morning air, soft, barely audible. "Don't go." I didn't turn around. I've babysat dozens of kids since then, and every time I hear footsteps in a hallway at night, I still brace myself for the sound of a small boy whispering my name. When a baby monitor starts recording things you never said and replies to voices you don't recognize, you stop believing you're alone in the house. I took one babysitting job in 2019 that still makes me unplug every electronic device before bed. It started as a normal night. Just me, a baby asleep in a crib in a small suburban house that felt way too quiet. The parents, Emily and Grant, seemed nice enough, a little overprotective, but new parents usually are. Their daughter, June, was only 8 months old, a tiny thing with big eyes and a soft pink blanket she wouldn't sleep without. They had 2 rules. Never turn off the baby monitor. If June starts babbling, don't talk back. I laughed when I heard the second rule. I thought it was one of those silly new parent superstitions. Emily didn't laugh. Instead, she lowered her voice. "You'll understand if it happens." She looked pale when she said that, like she was remembering something she wished she could forget. I should have taken that as a sign. The house was small, warm, and quiet. It's quiet, the kind of quiet where you can hear the fridge hum from across the room, the kind of quiet where every footstep feels loud enough to wake the dead. June's room was the last door on the right. Light pink walls, a mobile hanging over the crib, soft nightlight glowing against the far wall. Nothing unusual. The baby monitor camera sat above the crib, pointed down at her. Screen, a separate handheld device, showed thermal outlines, sound levels, and movement alerts. State of the art. Staff parents left at 7:20 p.m. By 7:35, June was asleep. By 7:50, I was bored and scrolling through my phone, and at 8:03, the house began changing. It started with a quiet crackle through the monitor, then a faint baby noise, a little coo, normal, then a second noise, deeper, not a baby, more like a whisper caught underwater. I sat up. Hello? Nothing. Just static. Then June's small coo again. But layered over something else. Like 2 sounds were happening at once. But out of sync. I leaned closer to the monitor. June was asleep, eyes closed, breathing steady, a little chest rising and falling softly. But the audio level bar kept jumping, like it was picking up another voice. At 8:10, the babbling started. Soft at first, just simple baby sounds. But it grew more rhythmic, intentional, almost like she was replying to someone. I whispered automatically, "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm done, Dan." I stopped because I remembered the rule. Don't talk back. I didn't know why yet. I just knew not to break that rule. I watched the monitor closely. June's eyes stayed closed, but her mouth moved, soft, babbling. A tiny voice, like she was dreaming. Then something else whispered through the speaker. A faint, dragging sound, like words stretched too long. A low voice, a male voice. "Come here." I froze. That sound couldn't be her. It couldn't be anything that small. My heart started pounding so loud the monitor almost seemed to pulse. With it, the baby monitor flickered brief static. Then a man's voice whispered, clearer, closer. I stood up immediately. "No," I whispered without meaning to. No. June didn't wake. She didn't move. She just breathed softly, completely unaware. I grabbed the nearest object, heavy ceramic mug, and walked down the hallway, trying to look brave, but feeling anything but bathroom-empty, closet-empty, bedroom-empty. Everything was locked. No windows open, no sign anyone else had entered, but the air was cold. Not like winter air cold, more like basement cold, old cold. Cold that felt like it had been there long before I arrived. When I returned to the living room, monitor screen had changed. It now showed part of the crib, just the bottom right corner, which meant the camera had moved. I never touched it. June was still asleep, but then I heard footsteps, not in the hallway, not in the house, inside the baby monitor, light steps, slow, deliberate, 1, 2, 3. Then a low whisper, right next to the microphone. Are you awake? I clamped a hand over my mouth. My entire body went stiff. June didn't respond, but something else did. A quiet giggle, not hers, too deep, too distorted, not human enough. A chill shot through my spine. I wanted to unplug the monitor, throw it outside, run, but I couldn't leave her alone. At 8:38 p.m., the monitor screen flickered again. Static lines. Then the picture came back. Okay, and someone else was in the room. A tall figure stood in the far left corner of June's nursery. Not clear, not fully visible. Just a shadow, a long, warped silhouette. Too tall for a person, too thin. Neck slightly bent, like it was listening. Its legs ended in nothing, just fading static. I blinked hard. The image trembled. But the figure didn't disappear. It stayed there, watching her, watching the crib, watching me. I whispered, "No, please, no." And then, slower than anything I've ever seen, the shadow tilted its head, not toward June, toward the camera, toward me. The speaker crackled. Then a harsh scraping sound came through, like nails dragging across a rough surface. Then breathing, slow, wet, too close to the microphone. She knows me. I shook my head. No, she doesn't. You're not real. Silence. Then she remembers. I stared at the monitor, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Remembers what? I whispered before I could stop myself. The voice replied instantly, like it had been waiting before she was yours. I nearly threw the monitor across the room. What does that even mean? What does a ghost or whatever that was mean by before? June shifted in her sleep, a tiny whine slipping out. The shadow moved. For the first time, it leaned closer, and the monitor audio exploded with static. I bolted down the hallway, every step pounding like a heartbeat. June's bedroom door was ajar. I pushed it open. Nothing was in the corner. Nothing was anywhere. Just her, sleeping, small, peaceful. But the mobile above her crib wasn't moving normally. It wasn't spinning. It wasn't rotating. It was shivering like something had just touched it or brushed past it. I whispered, "It's okay, June. You're okay." "Okay," and tucked the blanket around her. Her tiny hand gripped my finger, tight. Then she whispered something, soft, barely audible. "Night-night." I exhaled shakily, but then she whispered again, something different, something in a voice too low for a baby to form. "Come, play." I stumbled back so fast, I hit the dresser. Her eyes fluttered open, but they weren't looking at me. They weren't focusing. She stared past me at the dark corner of the room. At 9:12 p.m., I did what I knew I shouldn't. I unplugged the baby monitor. The second I did, June let out a wail so sharp, so panicked, it didn't sound like crying. It sounded like fear. I grabbed her, lifting her from the crib. She clung to my shirt, sobbing into my shoulder. "It's okay," I whispered. "You're safe." The monitor screen unplugged. Its dead crackled to life. Static. Whispers. Then a single sentence. "You shouldn't have done that." I held June tight, backing toward the door. "No," I whispered. "Leave her alone." Long, crackling sigh drifted through the dead monitor. I was here first. I swallowed hard. You're not her family. Another whisper. Closer. Too close. I was. My blood ran cold. I didn't understand. I didn't want to. Then the voice shifted. Higher. Younger. Like a child, just learning words. Mama. Ju whimpered and buried her face in my shoulder. That was enough. I ran. I rushed outside with June in my arms, dialing her parents with trembling fingers. They came home 20 minutes later, already crying. She grabbed June, checked her, kissed her, held her like she'd been gone for months. We told them everything. Not the full supernatural truth, just that the monitor was malfunctioning, and voices were coming through. Even that made Emily's face go pale when she heard the voice say, I was here first. She broke down between tears. She told me the truth. June was adopted. Her biological mother had died giving birth. Her biological father had died 3 months later in the house. In that same room, June was the only thing found alive inside Dodd. Emily whispered, voice trembling. We've heard the monitor talk before, too. As I walked to my car, I glanced back at the nursery window. I wish I hadn't, because behind the curtain, it's barely outlined by the nightlight glow. A shadow leaned into view, tall, thin, head tilted, watching, waiting, and then the baby monitor still, clugged, inside, crackled faintly through the open window. Good night. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.